Hello PHI planners. Here's a quick video discussing some of our imagery options for rover. The project that I have loaded up right now is the Asian longhorn beetle New York ALB survey project. The area in question is a county on Long Island, so this it's not the complete county but the information within these boundaries here. So it's a much smaller surface area than compared to PHI. On this particular project, the users are not utilizing Google because the project budget did not allow for the surveyors to have in the field internet connectivity. Given the smaller size of this area, we were able to acquire a couple different data sets for them to use instead. For this project demonstration, I've gone ahead and enabled Google so you can compare to 3 different options. So right now we have the Google layers turned on, and as I zoom in on the map, we'll get in a little bit closer and be able to see a little bit more about the quality of this aerial imagery. So not only does Google provide us with the aerial footprint, but it also provides us with this roads layer as well. So this layer here is coming from Google. What we did for ALB New York is utilize a different base station. We're using OpenStreetMaps instead, which the client may or may not have available since they don't have, not all their planners have internet access, but we did make OpenStreetMaps an option for them to utilize this different information. When we first did this project, we attempted to use the NAPE imagery, and so right now I'm loading the NAPE imagery. NAPE imagery is free imagery that is provided by the Census Bureau, I believe. It's 1 meter resolution. And you can see at this extent just how blurry this NAPE imagery is compared to the Google. So this is the NAPE. And this is the Google. Very sharp, pretty fuzzy. Now we can zoom in even closer, so let's turn back off the aerial imagery and we'll zoom in a little bit closer with the Google. And there does come to be a certain extent where the Google imagery becomes unavailable for us. Which is right there. So at this point I'm zoomed in too close. I can no longer see the Google imagery because Google is no longer providing us tiled imagery at this extent. Google just doesn't provide it. So I'll zoom out one more extent. We'll bring back in. So this is as close as I can get with Google. And I'll turn on the aerial imagery again so we can see a side-by-side comparison to the quality. Pretty fuzzy. Now the good news is that since this aerial imagery is stored locally, we can zoom in closer and the imagery will still be available. You can see that the Google layers have all shut off. They're no longer available at this extent, but my aerial imagery is. You can see this stitching effect that ThinkGeo does where it's trying to tile these images together so it ends up with these stitches. There's not much we can do about that. That's just a limitation of ThinkGeo's rendering. But you can see just how difficult it is to see the information that we're looking at. Now, this became unacceptable for ALB, so then we turned our attention to getting better quality imagery, and so that's what all these other files here are. I'm going to quickly try to identify what area I'm in so I know which tile to turn on. Did a little quick editing here to save some time. So back to the show. Because this is not free imagery. We acquired this imagery by essentially either acquiring it from other third parties. We either bought it, or in this case, it may have been provided to us by our client, the USDA. But in the end, we have a much better quality imagery, and at this point I'm zoomed in further than what Google can provide, and so I can get in a little bit closer and we can see just how close we can get in and still have imagery. You still have that stitching effect that's going to happen. It's going to be more pronounced as you zoom in closer and closer, but you can see that it's still a little bit fuzzy, but it's pretty good. I am zoomed in much closer than I could get with Google. Let me zoom back a couple extents until we can get Google to turn back on, so that we can compare this tile with the Google quality, which is coming up now. The Google tiles are loading in. Let me turn off the parcel layer just to get that out of the way. And I'll turn off the Babylon C1. So now we have the Google. And then I'll turn back on to Babylon. And I must be actually on the edge of Babylon. So that's why there's that line. I'm actually on the boundary edge of Babylon C1, it looks like. So the rest of it's coming in. So pretty good quality. It's different. It's flown at a different time. You can see this is a leaf off aerial. We don't have a lot of control over our options there, whereas Google is constantly freshing and updating, and as they fly new areas, the maps become immediately available, and no special effort by anybody to distribute these. So you might be asking, wow, that high quality, it looks great. Why don't we just use that? Or you may be in the opinion that the NAPE imagery, the existing free NAPE imagery, is perfectly acceptable, which might be accurate from a helicopter perspective. But the reason why we don't preload the higher quality imagery is there's a few reasons. One, the acquisition of this data takes time. Two, when it becomes dated, we need to replace it, whereas with Google we don't need to replace the imagery. And three, the size that it takes up on the disk drive. So if I bring up my ALB New York project and we go into... So the total size of the aerial imagery here is fairly large. Doesn't look like my screenshot has captured it, but oh, there we go. About 10.3 gigabytes. So this is a fairly significant footprint size, and this is for a very small area in Long Island. So to do this on the entire PHI system would be substantial, even if we could clip it around only the utility lines, which would also be considerable effort. It would still take up a lot of disk space on our GTACs. Disk space I don't think we have. And there is no way for the user to be able to add or remove layers to Rover on their own, so we would need to make sure that all the layers are available for the New Jersey planners and the Maryland planners. All that information would need to be loaded locally, so that way they would be available for the people that need it. Instead of acquiring this imagery, what I would prefer to do is for us to turn our attention to trying to pre-cache Google aerials. And what I'm thinking is a mechanism in Rover where the user can drag a box at a particular map extent, and Rover will just go to Google and acquire all the tiles that it's going to need in order to render maps in that area. So the idea would be you could do it the night before, you'd get all that information, and then it would be cached locally and available to be used. This is something that we've wanted to do ever since the original conception of Rover, but it's something that's been perpetually put on the back burner while we solve other challenges. But it's one that I would prefer us to focus our resources on rather than acquiring high-quality imagery photos. We'll see what Deb's response is for the NAPE imagery and consider that as an option as well, but I just wanted to make sure everyone had a chance to see the three side-by-side comparisons. Thanks a lot for your time. I appreciate it.